We've A/B tested ourselves into sameness. Question is, if your customer can't tell the difference between you and your competitor, why would they pick you?
The only thing that is the differentiator is trust.
As AI is becoming more and more of the way people find your brand, is there anything brands can do to stand out in that sense?
Content isn't the volume of output, it's the distribution of your belief system.
In a world where commerce shapes culture, Phillip Jackson has decoded the psychology of desire, co-founding Future Commerce, a platform turning cultural signals into strategies that drive growth, loyalty, and identity.
You said friction is misunderstood. What is good friction?
Netflix is probably one of the greatest low friction examples of a service that exists. They know without a shadow of a doubt the best way to get people from the start of minute one of a series to the very end of a series is to drop a full series all at once. They would do it differently if the data told them otherwise. But what do they lose? When you have a weekly episodic, there is something that happens that you can't measure, which is cultural resonance.
Future Commerce ran a study a few years ago where they stripped the branding off of every major retailer websites like Target, Crate and Barrel, a bunch of other big names. And they asked consumers to see if they could tell them apart. And they couldn't. And they A/B tested. So we've A/B tested ourselves into sameness. Every store has kind of looked the same. I know this exact feeling. Same, they sound the same. They use the same apps. They use the same templates. They're using the same AI-generated copy. And so the question is, if your customer can't tell the difference between you and your competitor, why would they pick you? And this is why I wanted to bring my guest on today, because he's been studying this problem for, I think, nearly a decade. Phillip Jackson, he's the CEO of Future Commerce. He's got a ton of other stuff he's doing. He's a host of a podcast. He's got a book coming out we're going to get into. But Future Commerce is a media and research company trusted by brands like Apple, Disney, Target, LVMH, probably many more. Those are the ones I know of. And Phil, your thesis is pretty simple, but it's powerful. And that's that commerce is culture. And the brands that win are the ones that treat it that way. So today I want to challenge our listeners how they think about their brand, their store, and what actually makes people buy from them. So we're going to talk about, I think, why every Shopify store looks the same and what actually makes people buy. And is AI actually helping? So Phil, let's start with this kind of elephant in the room, if you want to call it that. Let's talk about this study. I don't want to go through it again because I mentioned it, but walk me through it. What did you find? What was the process in this?
Yeah, it came out of, I spent a decade brand side before I spent a decade agency side in e-commerce. So I spent almost 20 years in the industry. And over that 20 years, I watched our industry go from this wild world where you started with, you could do anything and
Yep.
websites were very bespoke and very custom to there was one right way and sort of very religious adherence to a set of best practices that Mard Institute had the holy book on. And I saw that happen over a very long period of time. I was doing A/B testing and multivariate testing in 2007. And so this industry has been doing research, user research, focus group research, and user experience and UI optimization for as long as I've been doing large site builds. And I've been doing some enterprise work for the better part of 10 or 15 years. But what I wanted to understand was the law of large platforms tends to lead us to averages. And this best fit average has led us to what I would call sort of the sea of sameness or the homogenization effect. And homogenization effect is something that I have witnessed now, not just in the user experience, which everybody understands, but it also exists in the way that we solve problems, right? It exists in the organizational structure. It's in every facet of our behavior in the industry, and it exists at a cultural level.
Yep.
And so when we go to study the consumer behavior, there's a lot of power in us repeating the behaviors, right? So you don't have to retrain a customer how to shop on a website. Everybody knows how to shop on e-commerce website. But the pattern interrupt that we all understand now with thumb stop and things like that, we understand how to stop people in their tracks. We understand good friction. What I was trying to communicate, original research was what is the web version of the good friction? What is the web version of
Mm.
us reintroducing new friction back into the experience where people are actually stopping and thinking about what they're buying? Because I think brand is the actual differentiator. And what we have relegated brand to now, Jay, is nothing more than a logo and a set of typefaces and a bar at the top of the website. And we're in a world where most of the products that people are seeing in their Instagram feed that leads them to a website that can be one click bought with the purple button on a website. There's nothing different about those products than if everything's being drop shipped from the same sources, from the same countries. So the brand is really the differentiator. And so the way that we sort of differentiate is we've got to stop people in their tracks. They have to feel something, they have to take notice of the experience. So I'll stop there. And we wanted to quantify that. We wanted to quantify what customers were actually experiencing rather than just leading with that hypothesis, because everybody thinks things. I actually want to know them. I want to have data around it. And I wasn't surprised by the outcome, but I was heartened by the fact that I think that we can change it if we decide
Mhm.
to. And I'm
Mm.
starting to see actually glimmers of that, especially with the tools that we have now with AI and all the rest.
Okay, so many places I want to go from this because, first of all, I feel that right now is this crazy time where one question going through my head is how relevant, like websites in general, right? Like people are going to AI to buy stuff. So, like, this is even more of a challenge now. And some people are saying that the only thing that matters is your product catalog, or the only thing that will matter in a few years is going to be the quality of your product data and the actual catalog so that AI can understand it and recommend it. That's, I feel like, I maybe want to go down this path a little bit because without going too far into the future, as AI is becoming more and more of the way people find your brand versus experiencing it on the site, is there anything brands can do to stand out in that sense?
I mean, sure. There's things you can and should be doing right now. So William Gibson said, "Future is always here. It's just not evenly distributed." So look around. What are we doing right now? AEO, GEO. These are things that I think are the current arbitrage opportunity.
Mm.
I'm looking at my site right now, futurecommerce.com. We have 170% more organic traffic today than we did a year ago, and that's all due to ChatGPT and
Mm.
Claude. And all of that, some of that's that we're appealing more toward agentic traffic today. And I want to treat the agent as a particular type of a consumer of my content. And that means that I have to start thinking of two different types of consumers of my media. I think that merchants should be thinking about it as much the same. And so if you're not there already, this is as best of time as any. You should be, this is the arbitrage opportunity that Facebook was in 2016, right? So you should be already investing there, and there's never going to be a better time than that right now. But I do think that we have a tendency, Jay, and this sort of answer your question, but in a different way, in our industry in particular, because of the lack of friction that we have right now in tech adoption, easy to adopt an app, right? Very
Mhm.
easy for us it's even easier right now to code tech ourselves. I popped open Shopify the other day and I asked Sidekick for an app recommendation, and it said to me, rather than recommending me an app, it told me it could code it for me. So that's where we are right now. I just had to
Mhm.
accept the terms of service. It's going to actually write it for me now. So the friction to us adopting tech is very low.
Yep.
We have a conspicuous consumption behavior in our ecosystem. It's a cultural nature that we have. And so we like to consume technology and we like to see what others are doing and we like to do that. So that's like a cultural behavior that we have. I think that's a risk point for us. We like to know what others are doing and we like to parrot that behavior. A study that I like to point out is that there's Reserve Bank of Philadelphia did the study about Canadian lottery winners back in 2018 and found out that for every $1,000 in lottery winnings in Canada, the neighbor's bankruptcy rate probability increased by 2.4%.
Wow, what a
So
crazy stat.
let
Yeah, I never
let
thought
that
about
sink
that,
in.
but that makes
Yeah.
sense.
There's a keeping up with the Joneses effect
Yeah.
that happens to people with good fortune around you,
Mm.
that your perception of what works for them impacts the decisions that you make every day.
Mm.
So, what works for Grooms or what works for Poppy and the tech stacks that they have and the blogs that you read right? Or the articles that are being written on X, or the threads that are being posted, or the Slack channels that you're in has a absolute effect on the way that you're making technology decisions. And those contexts are not the same context as yours. Those
Yeah.
customers are not the same as yours. Their budgets are not the same as yours. And I know that we all know that, but our behaviors do not dictate that we know that.
Yeah.
And so anyway, and that's why we have the Sea of Sameness, right?
Yeah.
Is the conspicuous consumption. And that's also why I believe that we're particularly risk prone going into this next phase too, is because not only will we adopt the tech, but I think we're very prone to now build a new wave of tech too, which I think has its own risks. But I digress on that point.
Well, and you've said that e-commerce, and you just mentioned this as well too, that has been mostly solved, like from a
Yeah.
technology standpoint. Like it's actually interesting. Like my first online store was in 1998 and I built it with Microsoft
Yeah.
Front Page and page by page. And actually I didn't even have a checkout. I would only take phone orders. And then I think a couple years later, I connected a third party checkout to it just to process a credit card. I had to have a certain credit score. I had to personally guarantee it to process a credit card. I
That's
remember
right.
applying for my merchant account and it took 45 days. And I remember when I got approved, I'm like, I can charge a credit card now online. Like it was hard. Now, like
Yeah.
you can flip a switch, have a beautiful theme, be taking payments through Shopify payments in seconds, zero wait on approval. You can source products so easily. So it's like some merchants have been obsessing over like technology forever. Now what? Like now what do they obsess over? How do they stand out?
And we went from default skepticism around the online order to default trust.
Right.
And I think that we do that too in new channels, right? When we saw TikTok emerge, there's sort of default skepticism, and now we're in sort of default trust. And I think Whatnot is kind of there is like there's a default skepticism. Now we're like moving to
Yeah.
default trust.
Yeah.
And by the way, the cycles seem to accelerate. The trust factor happens very quickly because also there's network effects with our factors of trust. When coming back to, sorry, what was your original
Well,
point?
when technology is so easy, when everyone can have a
Yeah,
super high converting checkout, a great upsell experience, they have great email collection flows, like their pages load fast, like everything is good. What now? You literally can have a perfectly optimized store. Like that's not a competitive
right.
advantage at all. I mean, you got to do it as table stakes, but what should brands be obsessing over then?
Yeah. So that's where we really have to reframe the job, right? It's not really conversion anymore. I think the job it used to be get the people to the site, give them a reason to buy, and that's good enough because we could trust that there was a means of delivering traffic and you would win some sort of like bid lottery and that would get you to the site. Like at some point
Right.
that would but the now we're on sort of level playing ground. And there's too many brands, realistically, there's too many brands than our society really can sustain. So, how do you win? I really believe that it comes down to trust. And
Mm.
trust is a facet of brand because that is the
Hmm.
differentiator. So, when everybody has the same, you know, when everybody sort of has the same set of tools
Technologies, either tech
and the
stack.
same
Yeah.
technologies, the only thing that is the differentiator is does it come down to do I trust
Mm.
this thing? Do I trust this brand? And I think that's why we come back to nostalgia over and over again. That's why nostalgic marketing works so well.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
it's also one of the reasons why I think that I'm so fascinated with recently with things like time capsules. And this is a total aside, but
I just bought one recently. Like
you did.
I actually like a metal. It has like rubber seals and it's got screws
Yeah.
and it's like about the size of a shoebox. And I told my kids we're gonna put stuff in it. We haven't yet. My kids are 12 and 9 years old, so they're kind of at a good age. They'll remember it. They're
Yeah.
not 3.
That's fantastic.
And so next summer, like my son will probably put in Pokemon cards. They're gonna write themselves a letter. They're gonna make predictions. Will cars be flying when there's whatever? Like, will there be robots everywhere? They all have to
Oh,
answer stuff. We're gonna put it in, and then we're gonna open it whenever at some point.
I love this so much. So this is it's a human truth, right? We love as much as we love to dig stuff up, we love to bury it too, right? And
Mm.
there's a human truth. Every culture has this cultural nature, this cultural function where we teach our young to this archival behavior where we create like a form of a time capsule. The two greatest time capsules that have ever been made in the history of mankind that were meant and purported to be 5,000 plus year projects were created by consumer brands, believe it or not. There's one in New York at the World's Fair. It was created by Westinghouse, which is the Westinghouse Electric Company that's now does a lot of things like power generation. Sure, they do nuclear power plants, but they also do all the light bulbs in your home. But they created at the World's Fair, I believe, 1938 and refreshed again 1968. And they created this brand new, for the World's Fair, this new alloy called cupalloy, which is like a copper alloy that was supposed to withstand the elements for 5,000
Hmm.
years. And what do they put into this time capsule? It's mostly things that people bought in the day. And
Hmm.
the brands that they put into it are things that still exist today. It's like Camel cigarettes and Remington and it's like brands that you would recognize and there's still ones Kodak. Like there are enduring logos that are in there today. The Sears catalog is in there on microfiche. Like
Wow.
the things that are in there are it's what we buy is effectively who we are.
Yeah.
And that truth is reflected in 1970 in Osaka at another World's Fair. The company called the Matsushita Electric Company, which went on to become known as Panasonic, also created a time capsule. And they did the same thing. It was 3-year commission, and they buried this time capsule, and they filled it with again consumer brands because what we buy is who we are. And
Hmm.
I just find this so fascinating that commerce again, commerce is culture. At the end of the day, the job of this industry and what we do is phenomenally powerful. And that is why I think what we do in this industry is we shape the tastes of people, we shape the decisions of what people buy. We ask
Yeah.
people to part with money for sure. But what people buy is a function and a reflection of their nature and their sense of belonging, their semiotics of like by their facets of their being. And those things are powerful levers for us to wield. And I don't think that they should be given over fully to algorithms. I think that those are things that
Hmm.
that we have power to exercise in this world. And that makes us cultural change makers in this industry, not just executives of D2C brands, right? I think we have much more power than we know, and we should wield it as such.
Okay. So I want to dive into this because I think people listening are 100% resonating with that. Like I get it. When you say it, like, yeah, you are what you buy to a large, like it is a reflection of you, like what you buy, your clothing, your furniture, your car, everything. You say that. Now, to go a little bit more practical on that, how can a brand actually approach how they sell their products? Is there things maybe that we think we're doing that are building culture, but maybe aren't? How can a brand approach this? Like, this is a truth worldview. Now, is there a way what they're selling their products to actually to be something that would be in a time capsule one day, maybe?
Wow. So I actually do have a lot of thoughts to gather a few. Well, we definitely want things to last longer. We want campaigns to be enduring. We don't want our work to have been in vain, sure. I do think that the world that we live in today looks different than the world that 1970 or 1938 looks like. It's harder today to put, say, the Timothy Chalamet and Marty Supreme campaign into a time capsule. So how do you
Right.
put what is effectively a series of activations in a moment and capture that into a time capsule?
Right.
And so the world that we live in and inhabit today is so experiential. I think it's so very different to the world that I think was in the past that the time capsule of today is effectively media centric. So it's being captured and created in real time by many people all at once. So we're all contributing to it together in real time. So in some ways, instigating people to co-create with you in a multiplayer fashion is part of the time capsule building. So that means that you need your community to be constantly building your brand along with you. That's a little bit of a cop out, but I think that's very true. The other part of it is I have this 2x2, which I'll send over for you to post up. But there's a visualization of the mimesis, which is sort of like the mimetic behaviors of brands. And we just saw the perfect example of this actually is McDonald's does this really well all the time. Whether they do it by accident recently, which is the Chris K, the CEO of McDonald's, recently did this where he had this video where he's kind of dorky looking and he's taking a bite of the Big Arch burger. I don't know if you saw this.
I
And
didn't
uh,
know.
oh my goodness. Okay. So you missed, while you're launching your product recently, you missed a whole minute on the internet where the CEO of McDonald's sat down to launch this brand new burger. They don't launch a new burger very often, and
Yeah.
he was going to launch it. He's kind of a nerdy sort of a guy, and he does all the wrong things that you should just never do. He calls it a product. He takes the world's smallest bite of it. This guy looks like he never eats burgers in his life. He's examining it like he's like a sommelier. He's like talking about burger notes and stuff and the cheese and the crispy onion, whatever. He's just kind of giving off a weird air about it on the video. So what happens after that is the whole internet makes fun of him. And it could have been a bad moment for McDonald's. But what happens instead is every other burger CEO, from Arby's to BK to you name it. I mean, Wendy's,
Probably
they're
Wendy's
all
was in
getting in on the
there.
mix.
Yeah.
They're all getting in on the mix. And all their CEOs are trying to upstage him by doing it better. But what actually happens is he's now established a format. And
Mm.
having a format that people can easily recognize and people can easily copy actually makes him the originator, which somehow
Mhm.
makes him better. And if you
Mm.
think about McDonald's, McDonald's did this deftly with like the Grimace Shake. Grimace Shake
Mhm.
is a phenomenal format. The formats don't have to be complicated. The greatest formats in the world are easily recognizable and easily parroted. So,
Mm.
a great format is the iPod silhouette, right? With
Yes.
the black silhouette with the iPod white headphones, right? Any format that's easily copied and replicated by a community that second you see it, you know exactly what it is. Those are things that can endure and the community can easily jump in on, and people, whether they're making fun of it or whether they're parodying it, if Saturday Night Live could send it up, it's a great format and that's
Yeah.
easily endurable. What is not great is when your brand spends a ton of time creating things that only could be done by you and that could only be done at one point in time that really only live for the moment. And I think we should be really careful to be thinking about our time investments on if we're chasing every single trend and we're putting all of our time and energy into being on trend all the time and
Mm.
have no time and energy to place into these big bets that are highly mimetic. And
Mm.
so if you're friend.com, right, or if you're Cluely, right, they seem to be able to do this over and over again because they disappear for a couple months and then they come back with a big campaign. They're not doing it every single day. And I think that's
Right.
one of the misses of what our modern commerce culture is all about. We're constantly producing brand assets day after day, trying to chase trends.
Yeah, like, it's interesting if a brand comes to me and says, "We have a strong brand," it usually means they have a good logo and a good Instagram grid and that, but it's not. I think what they're missing is they don't have that point of view, they don't have that story, they don't have an opinion, a position on things, right? Like, does that tie into that as well too?
So I think people confuse brands with aesthetics and not a
Yeah.
worldview, right? So having a point of view in the world is, I think, the beginning of a great brand. We put on a summit every year, Jay, called Visions, and we have the C-suite of, I'd say, the world's most culture-defining businesses come from. It blows my mind still, by the way, that I'm doing this. I feel like I pinch myself every day that this is a job I get to do. But they come and they listen to it. And we curate incredible speakers. We bring people from outside of the e-commerce and retail industry to come and inspire them. Like last year, we brought Dammy Lee, who's an architect, to come and talk to these people. We brought in Andrew Huang, who's a YouTuber and he's a author, incredible filmmaker. And they just come and speak to us and inspire us about their cultural experiences, right? Just people that are totally outside of our world. And then we, as sort of the Babelfish, sort of translate it back to them. These are people that have incredible vision. I think what we've lost is like, what is the vision for our brand outside of the next 3 to 6 months? Outside
Mhm.
of what our dashboards tell us, like, do we have an actual worldview of what the world will look like with our brand in it, and what the world looks like without our brand in it, and what the world could be with our brand in it? I know it's the like, there's a joke meme that goes around is like what the world could look like if boomers could pronounce Chipotle correctly. and it's sort of the futuristic world. But that's what you should have your worldview is this is what the world could be if my brand existed. And that's the worldview. The other thing is treating customers like a lead instead of co-creators or participants. That again is part of the like your brand is does not exist apart from having people in it in the modern sense, being
Mm.
part and parcel of your community. And I do think that's such an important part of the modern brand building is that it's co-creative with your community. So it's not just aesthetics. These are much more than the logo today.
Yeah. And I often say too, it's often what your brand is, what the way other people would describe you, not how you describe yourself. So that's like, if you really want to know, ask someone else how they would describe it. And then that's if you're doing a good job or not.
Could I actually throw out a third option?
Sure. No, you can't. Yes.
There's a, I have this book.
I was
So
going
we
to
wrote
ask you
this
about
book
that.
called Lore, and this is our newest book from Future Commerce Press. This is a coffee table book. We put out one of these a year. Shameless plug, futurecommerce.com. You can go get this. But we called it lore because I believe every brand has lore, whether it's founder lore or maybe you have a century old founder, the founder's long gone, century old brand, you have lore. Everybody has lore, right? But I think a lot of people think, well, where's the truth of the brand? And so we dive into this over 300 pages. There's a bunch of angles to take on this. We do have one particular chapter sort of in here that's dedicated to something that my co-founder would call mythopoeia, which is an extraordinarily big word, and I had to learn how to pronounce it. But it's sort of this concept and this idea that is the brand in the eye of the beholder of like the customer. And I think that's an interesting point of view. Like, is it what your customer says about you, which is what you just said? And I think that I tended to believe that was true. If you ask a creative director, might say the brand is what the brand defines it to be and what the brand book says that the brand is, right? And that's how, if you do your job right, then the customer will have the same point of view that you have, and you've put your brand out into the world and it's received
Hmm.
in the way that you've intended it to be. But I think there's a third option. And the third option is that neither the brand nor the customer actually holds the universal truth of the brand, that in reality, it's somewhere in between, and that you're both telling a facet of the story of the brand,
Yeah.
and that the truth lives in the middle. And in that
Hmm.
way, it's more like mythology, in that we're all creating the story of the brand together over time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that as we're building the story of the brand together over time, it is subject to change over time. And no one person owns that story. And that means anyone can contribute to it. And in
Hmm.
that way, it kind of relinquishes us of all control.
Mm.
That's a little scary. I think that's a lot scary for brand owners. And it's, I think, something that we, I think more storied brands understand than we
Yeah.
know. And newer brand owners don't really understand just yet.
I think you see this with brands that work with influencers and creators. Like it used
Oh,
to
yeah.
be that you would give your creator or influencer community, okay, here's our brand guidelines. This is how we talk about the product. These are the features and benefits. This is what it
Yeah.
does. This is how you can, what you can say on a video. Now go make a video and go make some content. And what they learned is like creators, they want to talk about it the way they want to talk, like the good creators. So what brands are doing now, it's like, we're not going to give you anything. Like you go use this product and talk about it how you would. And they actually learn so much more. And then you nailed it. Like they end up adopt the brand, like the messaging
Hmm.
adjusts, different creators talk, and you often hear brands changing, like actually changing content on their head, like their website or their email copy based off of like creator communities. Hexclad has done this and others, and like it's
Right.
you're right. It is out of your hands an extent, and it's somewhere in the middle. Yeah, it's super interesting.
It is, but when you tell people, actually, your brand is more like mythology, literally nobody cares. They're like, how does that help me sell stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
But I do think that what we are lacking is a greater sense of awe and purpose in our jobs that we're doing. And that is something that we are bringing to the culture of our commerce industry. And that's something that we're doing it through research and through insights. And we're doing that by publishing larger pieces of print. I'm helping to elevate the conversation because we have for so long had a much less elevated conversation in our space. And I felt like somebody needed to have higher level conversation. You can get the tactics anywhere. We can all have the tactical conversation. I had that conversation for 22 years. Let's have a different kind of conversation.
Yeah.
So I appreciate anytime someone's willing and open to have a deeper one.
I think it's good. I think it's healthy. I think we live in a society where we just are going for like easy wins and quick hacks
Yeah.
and things, and change starts way back before it turns into action, like how you think about things and how you approach things. So I think that frame up really helps. So it's important. I'd love to touch on something you said really early on, and we didn't go into it, but I just made a mental bullet in my head to come back to it. You talked about, I think you called it good friction. I can't remember the
Yeah.
exact word you said,
Yeah.
but I've heard you talk about this, and you said friction is misunderstood, and we're so afraid of any friction that we've over optimized. Tell me about this. What is good friction?
I think we all understand that a little bit of friction's good. I had to put new tires on my car because they were bald. So you need a little bit of friction, right? Not enough friction on your tires is a bad thing. As I have said in the past, frictionless flip flop is dangerous. Frictionless sex is no fun. We need a little bit of friction, right? Somebody wants friction. What I've seen in my experience, and again, this is my experience, and maybe others have different experience, over the years, creating extraordinarily slippery checkouts leads to deleterious effects down the line. So when people have very quick, thoughtless checkouts where they buy a product, especially one that is around what I would say is sort of the rings of intimacy is the around you, on you, in you. So when something gets closer to the ring of intimacy where it's like something you ingest, that it's a much more considered purchase. And if the checkout process is too slippery, if it's too quick and you make it too fast and it's something that is too intimate, they're much more quick to want to undo that transaction. That's where you start having chargebacks. That's where you start having CX complaints. That's where you
Yep.
start having negative reviews. Like the ill effects of the fast checkout, the frictionless purchase, start to reveal themselves down the line.
Yep.
And so everybody wants a fast, frictionless purchase. Nobody's thinking about what are the knock on effects afterward. I shouldn't say nobody. Many people haven't thought about that. And so what we found in my agency days is a little bit more education up front for certain product styles. I spent a lot of time in nutrition, and I spent a lot of time in the supplement space. And I did a lot of in footwear, and I did a lot in apparel. I did a lot in intimates. When you're spending a lot of time in those sorts of categories, you learn where those points of friction are, and you learn where to introduce them and to test where to introduce them and find what works for a specific product, for a brand, for a customer. And it doesn't work. One
Yep.
product, one PDP, there's no one thing to rule them all. It's
Right.
not a best size, best fit approach. And so you learn to also constantly retest your own assumptions on a repeating basis because you can't just set and forget. So that's sort of the big meta overarching
Yeah.
idea there.
I love this because something I think a lot about is like wine. You buy wine, if you just picked it up at a store, or say you're at a restaurant and you just asked for a good bottle of wine or something, and it just like appeared or just brought out, or the server just brought it to you, you'd have a certain level of appreciation for it. But you might not just go and it might taste good, but you're probably not going to rave about it to your friends. But when the sommelier comes out and tells you about it and tells you about where it's from and why these grapes are maybe different and their experience with the wine, and they give you some information about it, it raises your level of experience with it, and you experience it a different way because you have understanding on it, and you're also armed with that information to then when you're telling someone about the wine, you know about it. But that is
Hmm.
friction. It slows down the process. You didn't get it as fast,
Oh, for sure.
but you're educating them on the product, which I think this is like I think there's like no such thing as value. This is a theory I have. Like there's Netflix arguably has a billions of dollars of value of, I don't know, if you added up the cost of every movie and show in Netflix, if you were to buy it all, like there's maybe $1 billion of value there. But some people don't want to pay $15 a month for it. So what is value? Like there's no, and some people will pay $100,000 for a comic book and some people wouldn't pay $2. So there's really no, it's all perceived. It's all perceived. It's
Mhm.
what you perceive the value to be of it. And that only comes from education. And so we think that as brands, and tie this back to commerce, is like we think that when someone buys a product, they've seen the value in it and they're buying it. And then we think, okay, great, they've bought the product. I win. That's a checkout, ching. But it's not. They're in their head. They're a lead. Like they're trying it out. They're not committed. They're just enough to get them through the checkout. And then your job is to continue educating them through the checkout, after the checkout, show a video on the thank you page, email them the second they check out, 2 hours later, start sending them emails of like people that have used the supplements or whatever nutrition product is and some results. And then there's a placebo effect probably when they get that, whatever supplement it is, that they're probably going to feel better because they've been educated about it. I think about this a lot and I've never thought about it as like this good friction concept, which I love that
Mm.
framing. Does this perceived value and real value, like I feel like that ties into this.
It does. I'll use your Netflix example as the tie-in because I think it's really apropos to our culture. Netflix is probably one of the greatest low friction examples of a service that exists, right?
Mm.
They at the end of a show, it auto plays the next, right? Also, in their original programming, original series, they tend to drop an entire season all at once. If you get Squid Game, you're going to get all of Squid Game all at
Mhm.
once. Right? So you can binge the whole thing and see it all in one go if you wanted. Day one, Squid Game, bang.
Yeah.
You don't have to get spoiled at all.
Best way to watch a series.
And Netflix employs some of the largest number of data scientists of any organization on planet Earth. They know without a shadow of a doubt, and I believe them, that the best way to get people from the start of minute one of a series to the very end of a series to the credits roll at the end is to drop a full series in its entirety in one day.
Yeah.
I know that they know that because they continue to do it for the last decade. They would do it differently if the data told them otherwise. So let's all agree on that. But what do they lose that can't be measured otherwise? When a show drops weekly, like recently the Game of Thrones series that has been coming out, or Severance, when there is a weekly
Is the new
show,
Severance out?
no, Severance
Oh, but
recently,
when they, yes, okay.
episodic series like
Yes.
Severance or
Yeah. And they did it with Stranger Things.
correct.
Yeah.
When you have a weekly episodic, there is something that happens that you can't measure, which is cultural resonance.
Yeah.
There's something that happens where people are talking about it, people are wondering about it, fan theories
You
are
listen to the
circulating.
podcasts
You
about
have the
each episode.
podcasts that come on, right?
Yeah.
There is something bigger that happens on a larger scale that sustains the cultural expectation that people have. And it hits harder.
Yeah.
It lasts longer and the halo's bigger. And that's something that no dashboard can really tell you.
Mm.
I mean, there's probably a form of social measurement that could tell you something, but
Yeah.
the numbers engagement of how many people get to the end of the series would tell you otherwise. It would tell you that more people didn't make it to the end of the series, most likely. So it would be
Yes.
that's bad friction by the dashboard, but it's good friction by the culture measure.
Yeah.
And so I think it depends on what you're aiming for. But if for me, it would be for longevity of you have to probably balance both, right? You probably
Yeah.
just wouldn't go hard in the paint on one. But for me, I think for a brand to make it in today's era, what we really need to see is like a measure of there's things that we just can't measure what does extend into these cultural resonances. And to me, that's something that I think comes with intuition. And yeah, I think it does have that good friction aspect to it.
That's super interesting. Yeah. I think like I have kids. Do you have kids?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Two
They-
teens.
2 teens. Okay. So like when they want something and you just get it for them, the level of appreciation is almost nothing.
Oh, yeah. It's the same. Yeah.
But if they wait for it, if they work for it, or they save up for it or something, like they'll cherish it. Like it's still like there's so many examples of this. Like it is like a universal truth. It's like good
Yeah.
friction, right?
And it's why in a Four Peaks So we have a series at Future Commerce over on Future Commerce Plus, which is an education series. Orchid Bertelson, formerly of Common Thread, she taught a series over there about the new funnel, which is more of like a loyalty loop. And the loyalty loop sort of depends on one of these pieces of calendar management, which is a 4 peaks planning method. And it's about sustaining interest. It's about keeping people's interest. And part of that is you have to give people something to look forward to. We have to
Mm,
have something on the horizon that people are always
mm,
being teased by and always being sort of looking forward to. It's either the coming product drop or a pre order, or
mm.
something has to keep the brand alive and keep it in the back of their minds. And the cheapest, easiest way is the discount. And that's also, that's where I think she just explains it way better than I ever could. But she gives a bunch of examples on how to do this and a bunch of brands that have done it well. Skims does this extraordinarily well with product development and through gags. But we see this a lot today with product development as marketing. But that's a thing that we're seeing play out today over and over again, is how do you
Yeah.
keep your brand alive and resonant in the culture?
Yeah. I mean, Apple did this great with their keynote drops every year and the big releases, and every year there's something, you gotta wait for it, and then there's the Mac rumors that come out and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah. We're getting close on time, but there's a couple, only 1 or 2 more questions I wanted to make sure I get in. One of them was actually, like, for those listening, I always ask guests, "Hey, is there anything you wanna make sure I ask you on the show?" One of the things that you wrote was, I think it was, "How do you build demand without becoming a content hamster wheel?" And I loved that because a lot of merchants I talk to, they are literally on a treadmill. They're like posting content
Hmm.
every day. They're sending 3 emails. They're making reels and TikToks and whatever else. And they're just like content hamster wheel, and they're exhausted. And some of them will burn out for sure. Some of it might be working. I don't know if it's not, what's the alternative? Why did you list that as one of the questions you wanted me to make sure I asked? Because I think it's
Okay.
super relevant.
Well, I think it comes back to why people continue to tag me in things like I get tagged in multiple things, one of which is time capsule. If there's something time capsule related on the internet, I get tagged in it
Mm,
by people in my community, people that are subscribers of Future Commerce. The other is I am become synonymous with our trademarked catchphrase. It's the commerce is culture. And I really believe that how do you build demand without becoming a content hamster wheel? It's because content isn't the volume of output. It's the distribution of your belief system. So for me, it's taking one core idea and repeating it over and over again through a variety of formats. And when you repeat it over time, it becomes synonymous with you. And this is what has become core to Future Commerce as a brand, is commerce as culture. It's become synonymous to us as a brand. When with AG1, I think AG1 has done a phenomenal job in repeating their core identity of it's a simple one a day, take this packet and it
mhm.
works for achieving your goals of living a healthy life, as and they almost always associate it to something active. You sort of have this lifestyle that becomes associated, and they're extraordinarily good at framing it, and they're extraordinarily good at doing it even visually without having to have a catchphrase or
Yeah.
a. And so when you have one core idea, you can deliver it in many formats and you repeat it over time. The publishing of it doesn't have to be the recency and frequency bias that I think it that we tend to believe it does. It
Yeah.
just needs to be memorable, and it's not just about the impressions. I think again, coming back to what I said before, it's about the trust factor and the reputation. So that's what I think. It just, as somebody who's created content on the internet since 2013, I've had a podcast since 2014. I've created literally maybe 2,000 episodes of podcasts now.
Crazy.
I'm it is crazy. I feel like you can easily I mean, I haven't even quantified how many like short form pieces of content. It's probably millions of minutes of content. But when you kind of break it all down, it's really just a handful of core ideas that get repeated over and over again.
Mm,
And I think if we were to really be honest, if brands really were to be honest, I don't know that they could say it's a handful of core ideas. I think it's a scatter shot of a bunch of things that are mixed messages that are just trying to get people to convert.
yeah. I have an analogy that I didn't make this up. Actually, our CEO says this all the time. He came from Intuit and PayPal for 10 years. And anyways, he says marketing is like a drumbeat, and it just needs to be like, it doesn't, to us, if we put a message out, we think like, oh, we can't talk about that again the next week, or we got to talk about something different. He's like, no, you got to beat the drum, the same drum over and over. And like, we think you don't become the commerce's culture guy if you just say it once. But
Right.
you've worked that into hundreds of episodes and content. It probably come up on talks, conferences. You're beating that drum. And it's, I think, in some ways, to me, that actually takes weight off my shoulders when I think about it like that versus thinking like, brainstorm every week. What can we put out this? No, beat the same drum. Beat the same drum.
That's
You can
right.
you It's actually not bad. People, you're not annoying. We think that we can't say something more than once, but it's not that at all. You just got to beat that drum. And that's when you become the iconic, like when someone says the name, that's that brand, right? Like AG1 has beaten that drum and they're still
Yeah.
beating it.
I mean, we come back to the ba-da-bop. Like, how long has this they've been saying I'm loving it over at McDonald's? Like, it's
Yeah.
a long time, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So if you were advising a Shopify merchant, I don't know, doing like mid-size, maybe 5 to 10 million a year, they've got a small marketing team. What would you tell them to focus on, and what would you tell them to stop doing, given kind of things we've talked about today?
Man, well, stop chasing trends. I really believe that there's a lot of things that I think people are overinvested in these days. So everybody's context is a little bit different too. I don't think it's ever too well. I have a friend. Her name's Alex Greifeld. I think everybody should probably be tapped into her. So aside from Future Commerce, I think I love when people subscribe to Future Commerce, but you should definitely be subscribed to No Best Practices, which is Alex's media property. She has this really great thesis on brand the 5 to 10 million range that you really just need to know who you are. And if you're DR, if you're direct response, then you need to go all in on DR. And if you're
Mm,
brand, you need to go all in on brand. And so you can't live in the middle because that's where the middle is where you go to die. And
mm,
so if you really are a brand, then you need to do brand things. And that means you're playing a long game. So you can't do short game things.
mhm,
And so for when I'm talking to brands, I'm talking to brands. I'm not talking to people who are doing direct response. And so you got to play longer games, and that means you got to be default alive, and that means taking longer looks and longer out views and having bigger vision, and that means it's slower. Things are just
mhm,
slower. And
mhm,
so you got to have more patience. And so for me, it's you got to look for the bigger wins over longer hauls and stop chasing trends because doing all of these little short bursts, they winnow down your budgets and you leave you nothing left to actually have bigger wins along the line. So that's sort of my meta advice. And I do think Alex is a great person to follow who can give some really targeted tactical advice along the way.
amazing. Got time for the quick lightning round?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. A Shopify merchant tells you they've got $10,000 to spend. What should they spend it on? Better ads, brand. Where are they spending their 10,000 bucks today?
Right now, I mean, they should spend it on bold commerce for sure. No, they 10,000 bucks right now. You know what? I'm pretty bullish on, this if you have $10,000, I would do
I
an
said
8.
10 instead of 100,000. Like that's a
I know it's
specific amount. Like,
it's
yeah,
a tough
yeah.
I mean, you can always put more money into ads, but I would be testing right now on more AEO. So I would be doing if you don't have like brand radar, if you're not doing stuff like with
Mm,
Ahrefs right now, if you don't have like an SEO agency, like I would be going and spending money on that right now.
yeah,
10K is probably just the entrance fee,
yeah.
but like you should probably be doing that. You should be doing that right now.
AI generated product descriptions. Yes or no?
That's a big no. But you should probably be looking at what it is. It depends on the scale of your catalog. I think there's an asterisk next to the no.
What's one brand on Shopify right now that maybe most people haven't heard of? Maybe some have, but that people should be paying attention to.
Higher dose.
Hmm. Yes.
Higher Higher Dose is a rad brand, you
Yep.
guys. And my friend over there, Ingrid Millman Cordy, is the CMO, and she's doing some really sick stuff. They have their I wasn't necessarily hip to it or was a believer in it, but they started with like red light therapy products, but they really expanded into a really large assortment of high considered purchase, like really large AOV appliances for wellness. And this company is growing like gangbusters. They have done a lot in, I think, investing in brand, like we've been talking about,
Yep.
but they're growing professional line as well. And they're doing consumables. And I think that they've done a lot to grow the site experience and they're converting really well. I'm really impressed with that shop and I've become a customer recently. So I can't say enough about them. And operationally, I know that they're really solid as well. And so I know the team. So I think that's one to watch.
I would agree 100%. Last one, fill in the blank. The biggest thing Shopify merchants will regret ignoring in 2026 is,
Is AEO. I
like,
think, yeah, don't regret it. Yeah. Answer engine optimization is the thing.
yeah. Okay, and before I let you go, you wrote in, I always ask guests some fun fact. You're an ultra runner. You run the same amount of miles as your age every year, is that right?
That's
So
right.
how old are
You
you?
leave this to the end. Thank God you left it to the end.
Well, it would have
Yeah.
changed the whole format of the episode.
I'm 45 this year. I'll be 46.
Hey, I'm
Just
46 as well. We're the same. There you go.
nice.
Yeah. So you
I'm
ran
also
you ran,
my first e-com website was in 98. We should commiserate. I feel
oh
like
my
we
gosh,
should,
that's so
we
crazy.
should jam at some point.
It was, wow. Was it also built with Microsoft front page?
Yeah, it was, and it was like a Fox Pro database, but
Okay. Yeah.
we'll have to talk at some point.
Yeah.
Dude, this was a really dumb thing I started a few years ago, and it gets longer every year. I've got a 100K that I've done a number of times here in Florida. There's a spur of the Florida Trail that goes through a portion of the Everglades. If anyone cares to look it up, it's called the Ocean to Lake Hiking Trail, and about 70% of it is underwater. And so it's just a grueling run, but I've sort of fallen in love with the misery of it. And for those who use the US units, it's about 63. Well, it's a little over 62 miles. It's 63.1, but it's
Kilometers, right?
yeah.
You're saying?
100 kilometers is about
Oh,
62
I'm sorry.
miles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thought you were saying 45 miles in kilometers. Yes.
Yeah. So it's 62 miles, but
Crazy.
this trail is about 63. It clocks in. I'll do that this year at some point. Probably October, November. And
Good
I'll
for
do
you.
that sort of a self-supported run. But yeah, I run my birthday in miles every year. And that's usually my launch to a bigger race. And I started that as just as a real life turnaround. I was not always this way. And so I'm pretty proud of that. And if anybody wants to read more about that story, I've got some of that out on the internet. You can find some of that. If you just Google Phillip Jackson running, you'll find it somewhere.
Amazing. It's
Yeah.
nice that thank you for sharing that, because we all get better from sometimes learning from someone else. So
Yeah.
if you inspire one person. Well, Phillip, this has been incredible. I want to make sure you're doing a ton. You've got podcasts, you've got books, you've got events. Can you tell me everything where people can not just learn about you and go, but like tell me everything you're doing. So like if someone's like, okay, this Phillip guy, I want to follow him. Where tell me
Yeah.
everything you got going on and where we can send people.
Yeah, thanks. Futurecommerce.com is the portal to everything. Future Commerce everywhere. So it's Future Commerce on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. And we have
The
events.
book is available there as well too.
Yeah, Future Commerce there as well. And so if you want to get Lore, which is our newest book, if you're watching right now, we've got a whole shelf of books up here. But our newest book is called Lore. It's the red one. I held it up earlier. And that's Future Commerce. If you go to futurecommerce.com, there's the shop link at the top. Proudly hosted on Shopify. But we're happy to say that we have a new book coming out at Shop Talk. That's coming out. It's called Strata. And that book will launch on the 24th of March. And so if you are around Shop Talk and that's your jam, we have a launch party happening at the Skyfall Lounge. So if you are on futurecommerce.com, there's info about that.
Is the Skyfall Lounge, is that on the wheel?
It's at the W Hotel. It's the 64th,
okay.
the W.
What's the concept of the book? Can you give us a
So,
hint, or is it like?
Yeah. So the concept of the book is, again, following along with commerce's culture, because again, you have to keep repeating the
drum.
concepts. Right. So strata, just like in geological strata, you have layers that build upon layers. And so what we did was we took all of the aesthetics of the last year that sort of emerged, everything from Sydney Sweeney to Mamdani to the 6'7" kid to the Costco hot dog and sort of the tariff debate with Gina Raimondo and joining the board of Costco. And so all these things that sort of emerged as storylines from the last year, and K-pop Demon Hunters and a bunch of things. And we've turned that into a really high-powered, really like in-your-face zine. And it's 80 pages. It's a cool format for us.
Wow.
We have another zine called the Multiplayer Brand that's sort of similar format. But this is unlike anything we've done before. I think it's kind of loud and it's a little edgy. I'm really proud of it though, and I think it has something to say. And it's sort of following in the footsteps of some other great thinkers. There's, if you know of any philosophers, there's Stuart Brand, who's a great thinker and sort of the father of the Whole Earth catalog. And then there's some other folks. He created some great content literature that this is definitely following the footsteps of. So would love to see you guys there, and would love someone to pick up the book. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think on your website, on the top, I think I saw a Shop Talk banner on there, right?
Yeah, there is.
For
Yeah,
information for people to find
That's
out
right.
about that. Okay. So I'll make sure I include that all in the show notes. So
Thank you.
Phil, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jay.
I just want to say for everyone listening, if you got value from this episode, make sure you hit subscribe. We just crossed 85,000 subscribers. Super pumped about that, and it's growing. Thank you. Coming from you, that means a lot. Like, we're only at, I don't know, a quarter of the episodes you're at, so I got to catch up to you. But the last thing to say for this is I had so many takeaways, but if there's one big one, just you don't have to overhaul your site, your entire store. Find a place where you can inject your point of view, your opinion that maybe a competitor can't copy. They can copy the UX and the UI and everything, but put your brand and your voice in there. Remember, and tag Phil on social when you do it and tell him about it. So Phil, thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.